Okay, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Prashant Ajmera. I'm the immigration lawyer, Canadian citizen, and the founder of the law firm Ajmera Law International, based in Ahmedabad, India, with our associates office in USA, Canada, Dubai, European countries, and many other countries and other parts of the world. What we are doing on a regular basis is we bring our associate law firms and talk about the residency and citizenship by investment program of the different countries. In the past few months, we have done it with the Portugal, Greece, Malta, Cyprus, Singapore, and now today we are going to talk about our associate is going to talk about the Bulgaria. And this program is becoming, European programs are getting more and more popular in India because of the free trade agreement which has been signed between the Indian government and European Union. And that's basically opens up the doors for the businessmen, investors, and people who are interested in immigrating to look at the whole European Union as a market for an entry for a variety of reasons to achieve their goal in the life, for the children's educations, for the expansion of the business, for visa-free travel, the quality of life, tax plannings, and whatnot. So I'll just give a floor to Ivan Petrov. He is with the Balkan law firm for a number of years. And even though he's not qualified lawyer, but I think now he knows more about the Bulgarian law, immigration law, more than a lawyer. But he is their, I would say, media persons and a spokesperson for the law firm. We have interacted, I have interacted with him in the past as well. And today he's going to talk to us about the Bulgarian golden visa. And you know that after the COVID, there has been a major changes in the European immigration law because the European Union do not want the European member countries to give out the citizenship because they want that the European citizenship is not for sale, right, Ivan?
Yes, well, thank you so much for the very kind introduction, Prashant. And I would like to greet all of your viewers and everybody who is attending. My name is Ivan Petrov, and as Prashant mentioned, I'm part of New Balkans Law Office. We are a full-service law firm with focus on immigration. We are based out of Sofia, Bulgaria, which is the capital, and we've been operating since 2005, initially with a focus on real estate, but after 2008, we have had strong interest in immigration. So we have started working with immigration, first standard routes, work-related routes, then residence by investment, citizenship by investment, and everything else. I would suggest that I start the process with giving a little bit of context about Bulgaria, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers are not that familiar with Bulgaria as a destination, even though Bulgaria and India, they are much closer than, let's say, Portugal and India, because Bulgaria is on the eastern side of
Of
the
Europe.
European Union. I myself have been to India. I've traveled to Mumbai. With my colleagues have met with Prashant, and we have worked closely together on a number of webinars and marketing initiatives. So just to give you like an understanding of Bulgaria, Bulgaria is actually a member state of the European Union. So if you are a resident or a citizen of Bulgaria, you have all of the benefits of EU member state. Bulgaria joined the European Union in 2007. Then, for a certain period of time, while Bulgarian citizens enjoyed freedom of movement, Bulgaria was not part of the Schengen free movement zone. But that didn't limit us from moving everywhere within the European Union. Just recently, in 2005 to 2025, we joined the Schengen area, meaning that if you currently hold a Bulgarian residence permit or you are a Bulgarian national, you can go to any other Schengen member state without crossing a border, which is a great benefit to the free movement of people, capital, and goods. Essentially, where I'm from, it's like what the second biggest city in Bulgaria, but actually the Greek seaside, it's closer to me than the Bulgarian seaside. And if I just get on the in the car, I can be at the Greek seaside in less than 2 hours, which is a great benefit for everybody living in Bulgaria. In addition, one of the newest developments for Bulgaria is the adoption of the euro or the common currency. Essentially, Bulgaria had its own currency until 2026. It was the Bulgarian lev. The Bulgarian lev was pegged to the euro, so essentially there wasn't an exchange rate fluctuation between the Bulgarian lev and the euro, so it was a natural step forward for us to adopt the euro. Essentially, this happened on the 1st of January 2026, and currently, Bulgaria, everything is in euro, meaning that the banking system is integrated within Europe, the capital system is integrated within Europe. If I go on holiday in Italy, I can pay with my Bulgarian bank card without any kind of exchange fees or surprises, which makes it much easier for both Bulgarian citizens and nationals. We are also seeing, because of that, huge interest in the Bulgarian stock exchange, because this is a new frontier market. And when it comes to Bulgaria, maybe it's interesting for some of you to learn about what's very economically what it's famous for. Generally, as part of the Eastern Bloc, the one of the most popular sectors is agriculture, and agriculture has always been like a main part of the Bulgarian economy. Interestingly enough, Bulgaria is a major producer of lavender oil, and it is one of the biggest producers of rose oil, and also peanuts. For a country that is quite small, it has like quite a few things that it produces. In addition, because of the former Soviet Union background, technical universities are quite strong in Bulgaria, and this is why we have a very strong startup scene. Essentially, lots of tech companies have based their R&D centers in Bulgaria, in addition to companies that are producing microchips and other parts, for example, car parts. We have a lot of companies from China and others that are building factories within certain free zones around the major cities in Bulgaria, including Sofia and Plovdiv, because they use Bulgaria as a gateway to the entire European market. As Bulgaria is part of the European Union, it means that if you set up your own company or you set up your own business or you're located in Bulgaria, you can operate in the entire EU market, which makes it very, very attractive for a lot of enterprises. Another thing that is quite interesting about Bulgaria, and not many people know that, is the fact that Bulgaria has one of the most favorable tax regimes in Europe. A lot of people know about like Malta and Cyprus, They are touted as almost the best tax regimes in the European Union. But surprisingly, Bulgaria has a lower tax rate than even Cyprus. And the tax rate for both corporate and natural persons is purely 10%. It's a flat tax rate. It doesn't go up. It doesn't depend on your total turnover or income. It's 10%. It's also interesting to point out that for natural persons, a tax on dividends is just 5%. There is no inheritance tax like in other jurisdictions within Europe. In addition to that, Bulgaria does have a very extensive double taxation treaty, meaning that even if you have Bulgarian income or you're a tax resident somewhere else, depending on this double taxation treaty, you would be treated specifically according to the regulations in that treaty. Bulgaria does have a treaty with India. It has like treaties with the majority of the Western world. And because Bulgaria was part of the former Soviet Union, it also has treaties with the former Soviet bloc. It has treaties with Russia, with Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Central Asia, Vietnam. These are quite extensive. So it would be quite interesting if you are setting up your structure within Bulgaria. You can also consider the beneficial tax treatment that you would be getting purely by basing your business out of Bulgaria. Bulgaria has like a very friendly business environment. People speak English, especially in the bigger cities. So those are Sofia, Plovdiv, Varna, Burgas. Recently, for people who are interested in current events, Bulgaria won Eurovision 2026. It's like a major song contest, and this has brought the spotlight to Bulgaria. Now Eurovision is also having its own version of like Eurovision Asia, so hopefully like India would participate in that as well. But overall, Bulgaria does offer quite interesting opportunities. So it's interesting to look at the country as a way to set up your foothold. When it comes to the labor force, Bulgaria does have a very highly educated labor force. So essentially, areas like engineering, computer sciences, languages are quite strong. So if you would wish to set up R&D business or a call center in Bulgaria, this can be like a suitable opportunity for you. As a start, I think it would be good to explain a little bit about the immigration framework in general in Bulgaria, because that would allow you an overview of how best to proceed in certain cases. As you know, and as Prashant mentioned, immigration within the European Union has become highly standardized. Essentially, there is a lot of consolidation and a lot of regulations and directives. So you have certain aspects that are left to member states in general, but the European Commission and the European Union has specific rules and regulations that each member state needs to adhere to. The immigration system in Bulgaria is mainly divided into two types of residence permits. So you have the so-called temporary residence permits and permanent residence. Like this is a little bit similar to the green card in the States. Like permanent residence is the Bulgarian version of a green card, and temporary residence is a type of residence that is renewable annually, and essentially it allows you to reside, live, and work within Bulgaria depending on the route that you have chosen. All residence routes follow the same logic. It doesn't matter if we are talking about like temporary residence or permanent residence, you always need to start with a long-term visa D. On the basis of this visa D, you would then apply for the residence permit that you're applying for, be it temporary or permanent. So essentially, you cannot directly get residence without going through the step of a visa D, even if you come from a country that allows you visa-free access to Bulgaria. So Prashant is a Canadian. If he would wish to obtain let's say, any kind of residence permit in Bulgaria, he would first need to apply for a Bulgarian type D visa, and then with the type D visa, he would need to travel to Bulgaria to apply for his residence permit, depending on the ground that he has chosen. Generally, if you hold a temporary residence permit, you are able to convert this temporary residence permit to a permanent one after holding it for 5 years. And after holding a permanent residence one for 5 years, you can convert that to citizenship. So these are the standard routes to naturalization. This is very similar to what is seen across the European Union and something that we are seeing everywhere, both in Portugal, in Spain, in Malta. You have these long periods of residence because the European Union wants to tie in physical or some kind of tangible connection to the country in order for you to obtain any kind of citizenship of a member state. Because being a citizen of one member state essentially means that you have access to the entire European Union. Me as a Bulgarian, if I wanted to go and work in Spain, nothing is stopping me. So ultimately, these kind of restrictions that we are seeing by the European Union and the European Commission are likely to stay in the long term because they want to strengthen the link between holding a residence permit and having some kind of connection to the country where you are having this kind of residence permit. They don't like to see these kind of purely transactional approaches where simply funds are exchanged and like you obtain a residence permit. Of course, uh, when you make significant investment, that does lead to certain benefits and positive results. For example, you would get to skip the step of temporary residence and immediately get permanent residence, which is quite important, which may means that you can get any kind of residency and any kind of citizenship much, much faster without staying in Bulgaria. So essentially, temporary residence involves certain routes, such as being married to a Bulgarian,
Mhm.
being an employee in a Bulgarian company, having like some kind of work permit, being a trade representative, being a pensioner who has sufficient means to reside in Bulgaria. All of these lead directly to temporary residence. If you make a significant investment, and by significant investment, I mean an investment of at least 511,000 euros in a fund in Bulgaria that leads directly to permanent residence, meaning you get to skip the step of temporary residence, you get directly to permanent residence, and you don't need to renew it every year. You get the card for 5 years, and that's it. So you are not required to essentially make a new application every year. You're not required to get a new card every year. You are granted like one single card, which is valid for 5 years, and that's it. Which is quite beneficial for people who are purely looking for these kind of no hassle routes and solutions. Generally, also one of the main differences between temporary residence and permanent residence is the fact that permanent residence gives you direct access to the labor market. Meaning that if you have like permanent residence, you actually have all the rights of a Bulgarian citizen. So if you have
Mm.
permanent residence, you can go to the hospital and use the social security system in the same way a Bulgarian citizen can. If you have permanent residence, you can go to a Bulgarian school, high school, university, and you would be treated as a domestic student, meaning that you would be paying the domestic fees for education, which are very, very low. These are quite funny per semester. It's something around like 400 euros.
Mm.
This is ridiculous for a lot of people, and people are quite surprised that education is so cheap in Bulgaria. But even if we consider some kind of foreign students, Bulgaria can be like a good educational option because even paid medical programs, we are talking about something like around 6,000 euros per year. So this is really quite cheap compared to programs in the UK, programs in Canada, programs in the States, and these kind of programs are world class. So what we can do now is we can separate the different routes to residence. So I'm going to separate them in three main categories. So the first category is work-related routes. The second category is going to be independent routes. And the third category is the so-called residence by investment routes, which are the main interest of our conversation this time around. But it is good to have like a better understanding of what's possible in Bulgaria and what's not possible in Bulgaria. The work-related routes in Bulgaria are very similar to what you might have seen anywhere across the European Union because these are regulated by EU directives and regulations. So you have three main work visas. So these are the so-called EU blue card, meaning this is targeted at highly skilled workers. So we are talking about engineers, we are talking about computer scientists, market researchers, and those kind of positions. Then we have the so-called Unified Work and Residence Permit. So this is targeted at blue-collar workers. So these are people that work in the hospitality sector, or people that work in factories, or people that work in the agricultural sector, or people that work in the transportation sector. And then the third route is the so-called seasonal workers. So these kind of like visas, they are shorter validity. They're valid for anywhere between like 90 days to 9 months. And these are only valid for two sectors. So tourism, hospitality, and agriculture. So these are the only areas that people can apply for seasonal work. What is common for all of these routes is the fact that everything is started by having an employer. So the employer initiates the process for your visa. You cannot simply decide, okay, I want to work in Bulgaria, let me get like a work visa. That's not how the immigration process works. You need to have identified an employer, and this employer needs to have initiated certain steps within Bulgaria. So they need to have like approval by the labor agency. They need to go through an approval by the migration department, depending on the route that you are focusing on. And certainly, like each route has its own specifics. For example, the EU Blue Card does require you to have a salary which is above the average salary for that position. It needs to be 1.5 times above the average salary for that position. This data is published on the National Statistical site. Just to give you like an understanding of what the salaries in Bulgaria are, currently the minimum salary is around 640 euros. The average salary is around 1,400 euros, and sectors that have like very high salaries, these are usually IT sectors because of the highly skilled workforce and a lot of big companies that have set up their businesses in Bulgaria. Actually, the average salary in certain sectors like IT in Bulgaria is very similar to what you're seeing in other parts of Europe, like in Central Europe or even in Western Europe. So when you are approaching a work-related route, you have to consider certain specificities about that. Another thing, for example, the unified residence and work permit for blue-collar workers, there is a specific requirement depending on the company, how big the company that is employing you is. It needs to have a certain quota, meaning that it can hire non-EU nationals for only 25 to 33% of all of its employees. Meaning that if you're offered a position under the Unified and Work and Residence Permit, you should ask around if the employer has sufficient Bulgarian employees before they give you like a work visa, so that you can make sure that you're not being scammed or taken advantage of in any way. So these are the work-related routes. As you can imagine, the world and Europe in general is growing older, meaning that you have a lack of labor force. And while the European Union market is a freedom of movement market, you can get people from, let's say, Poland coming to Bulgaria. Usually it doesn't fulfill all of your labor needs. That is why Bulgaria has recently turned to non-EU work-related sources. We are seeing more and more people from India and Nepal and Bangladesh coming to Bulgaria to fulfill certain areas that we are lacking labor of. This has created certain bottlenecks because, as I mentioned, all of the routes require a long-term visa D, meaning that you would need to apply for a visa D in a consulate. And in Bulgaria, the only consulate is in New Delhi. So essentially, when you're applying for a position in Bulgaria for a visa in the consulate, now can be quite tricky to get an appointment but we can speak directly with the consulate and see how we can push everything forward to make the process as simple as possible. So this was about the work-related route. And now let me just go to the other options that are possible for individuals who cannot be bothered by finding like a job offer. We are talking about entrepreneurs, people with sufficient means. So they would have options to reside in Bulgaria. So these kind of options include the so-called pension route, meaning that if you are a person who has a pension in your country of origin and this pension is over the minimum pension in Bulgaria, which currently stands at 320 euros, and you have sufficient means to sustain yourself in Bulgaria, you can apply for the so-called pensioner route visa.
It's like a retiree visa as well, basically.
Yes, it's a retiree visa. You can live in Bulgaria. You can find like a nice place on the seaside. We have very nice seaside resorts, or if you like the mountains, we have great mountain resorts with great skiing, and just live there as most people do. Another way that you can actually move to Bulgaria, if you are one of those new digital nomads that can work from anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that if you can offer services remotely, so you're an accountant, or you do market research, or you're a web developer or a designer, and you already have clients, you can apply for the so-called digital nomad visa. What's peculiar about the digital nomad visa, it is tailored to many different ways of how you have structured your work. You might have structured it as a freelancer. You might have structured it as working for a specific entity, for example, a big company in India, and this big company in India allows you to work remotely. That would also qualify you as a digital nomad. Or if you have your own company and want to essentially offer services somewhere outside of Bulgaria. What is important about this case is you need to prove that you have at least 50 minimal salaries of income for the previous year. So this is one of the specifics for this case. So
Right.
50 minimum salaries, it's around 30,000 euros for the previous year. So if you can show that your income for the calendar 2025 is around 30,000 euro or the equivalent in your own currency, that would make you eligible under the program.
Right.
And the third route for independent visas is the so-called trade representative office, which means if you have a company registered in India, and this company has been up and running for at least 2 years. It is tax compliant. It has paid its taxes and tax obligations to the
Mm.
Indian government. And this company has had turnover of at least 50,000 euros. So this is purely for active companies. This company can open a so-called trade representative office in Bulgaria. A trade representative office is not a branch, it's not a separate corporate entity, it is simply an external office of the Indian company, meaning you don't have any kind of tax obligations, you don't have any kind of accounting obligations, you don't have any kind of operational obligations. It is simply an office of the existing company. And because of that, you can send up to 2 people to Bulgaria as trade representatives. So these people are going to be working for the Indian company. They're going to be representatives of the Indian company, and they're going to be in Bulgaria evaluating the market. So essentially, what happens is a lot of big companies, before they want to commit to Bulgaria, they want to send some people from their management to see what the market is like. So they send somebody from upper management and they send it via the so-called trade representative office to see what the market is, to identify potential partners, to identify potential clients, to identify potential contractors. So it's a way of a stepping stone of obtaining a better understanding of the market. I want to point out that a lot of people are thinking, okay, can't I just set up a company in Bulgaria and get a residence permit? No. Essentially, if you only set up a company, that is not grounds for a visa in itself. You can set up a company and hire 10 Bulgarian people, then that would lead to a temporary residence permit.
Resident permit.
If you set up a company, you put 250,000 euros in the capital of that company then buys assets. So it buys factory equipment, it buys a factory space, it buys a warehouse, and it hires 10 people, then that leads to permanent residence. So there are ways when you can set up a business and get a residence permit, but purely setting up a company, let's say I want to open a restaurant in Bulgaria, this by itself does not grant you immigration rights, and it doesn't grant you rights to enter, work, reside within Bulgaria. So you have to keep this in mind when you're being advised what to do in Bulgaria. You have to choose, okay, what is the most suitable option for me? So should I look for a job? Should I focus on big employers in Bulgaria who can give me a job offer? Should I do something independently, like the digital nomad? Or maybe I should consider something else. Another way to get residence, but this requires really a significant investment, and this is targeted more of towards high net worth individuals, is by investing in Bulgarian funds. So you can invest around €500,000 in a regulated fund. So this needs to be a Bulgarian fund. It needs to be managed by a Bulgarian fund manager. And the focus of the fund needs to be in Bulgarian assets.
Okay.
As long as these criteria are met, you can invest 500,000, and this leads directly to permanent residence. So you skip all of these kind of temporary residence, you skip renewing the permit every year, you directly go to permanent residence. And this is something that has been preferred by a lot of clients of ours because there is an interesting quirk about this kind of investment.
Yeah.
If you obtain permanent residence on the basis of investment, there is actually an exemption in the law for you to physically reside in the country to maintain it. Essentially, if you obtain permanent residence by investing in a regulated fund vehicle,
Mhm.
you get the 5-year card, and in order for you to maintain it, you simply need to travel to the European Union. It doesn't need to be Bulgaria. It can be anywhere in the European Union at least once every 12 months. So that would allow you to keep your residence permit and uh, not have to use it at the same time. Another very beneficial aspect of this kind of investment is the fact that you can invest in a regulated fund, and there is specific language in the legislation which states after holding the investment for 5 years past grant of residence permit, you can dispose of the investment and keep your residence permit indefinitely, meaning that you can put the money in this fund, after 5 years, get it out, and you continue to keep the permit without holding the investment, which is very beneficial considering that the way that the Bulgarian fund market has been developing is very different than what you're seeing, let's say, in Greece, in Portugal, in Spain. In Portugal, you have lots of funds that were created specifically for residence by investment purposes. So these are vehicles that target only people who are interested in residence by investment. So their protection mechanisms are slightly different. In Bulgaria, you are seeing funds that have been used by institutional investors, meaning these are funds that other credit institutions, for example, banks, invest in, pension funds invest in these kind of funds, insurance funds invest in these kind of funds. So they're conservative by their very nature. The idea is to protect their assets and essentially grow them. So this is also like a money-making opportunity for people who want to consider the Bulgarian market as an option.
Mhm.
Of course, this is the free market. Nobody is going to give you guarantees that you are going to get a certain return on investment. But because Bulgaria has been an overall frontier market. It has been underdeveloped. It is in a curve that is going upwards. So we are seeing a lot of growth in this sector. And
Mhm.
this ties in very well with the other route that also leads to residence permit, but temporary residence permit is by investing in real estate. Essentially, if you buy a property in Bulgaria, you also get a residence permit. However, you need to buy a property that is worth at least 300,000. It can be anywhere. It can be a flat, it can be a house, it can be newly built, it can be second-hand. There are no restrictions. You can use it as a rental. You can use it as an Airbnb after you buy it. Again, no restrictions. You simply need to make sure that the value of your real estate purchase is over 300,000, and that's it. You are eligible to obtain temporary residence, which you can easily renew every year. And you can hold the real estate either directly, meaning you as a natural person can purchase it directly, or you can set up your own corporate structure where you set up a Bulgarian company and the Bulgarian company buys the asset and holds it. So it's quite flexible for a lot of people, and it gives you like a lot of opportunities. What we are seeing is significant growth in the real estate sector in Bulgaria. It's been crazy. COVID, the war, fuel crisis, nothing has stopped it. And it has been going up and up and up, especially in areas around Sofia. So if we are looking at South Sofia, which is the part closest to the mountains, because the capital is located next to the Vitosha Mountains, and it's a very nice area, clean air. You have access to a ski resort and the mountains, a short car ride away, or even you can walk. We are seeing a lot of interest in that area, and we are also seeing a lot of interest in first and second tier cities such as Plovdiv, Varna, Burgas, Ruse. So people can invest in real estate, and they can expect a significant return on investment, sometimes even up to 20% in less than a couple of years. Uh,
Wow.
so the market currently it's hot. How long it's going to be like this, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
It's a real estate market, and what is interesting is this market has not been driven by outside investors. So in Greece, you have a lot of outside capital uh, in the system, and that's why prices have been going up. But interestingly, in Bulgaria, all of the capital is from Bulgarians. So the market has not been targeted so much at international investors, but it's targeted at Bulgarian domestic consumption, which is quite interesting. So if you're looking at where you can invest your money, Bulgaria is actually a very interesting option, and it's worth considering, mainly because, first of all, not many people know about it. So you have the first come advantage. So the first to market is always quite good. And second of all, because it is a developing market, in a developing market, there is really an opportunity for growth.
Hmm.
So this is a general overview of the different routes in Bulgaria. Of course, there are other routes, like if we have to go into detail and specifics about each particular case, I'm afraid even like a 24 webinar is not going to be enough.
No.
So I just wanted to give you like an understanding, a general overview of what is possible and what is not possible in Bulgaria.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Was a very good and a very clear understandings you have given. Let me just stop the recording for this, and then we'll do the questions and answer.